Welcome to my YouTube channel. Welcome to A Better Black America TV. Welcome to A Better Black America Talk Radio Show. Now, today is Super Tuesday. It's not so super because here in the state of California, they only have one ballot measure on the ballot, and that's Proposition 50. So anybody in their right minds will have to vote no on 50 because it's a scam. Because basically they say that the Republicans are trying to cheat, that the Republicans are, cheating and rigging elections, and they brought out all the heavyweights. So basically, if they're cheating and we're accusing them of cheating, so then we need to get out there and cheat ourselves. So state of California put an independent body and the independent legislators on the board to draw the maps from an independent perspective, so they will not be any hanky-panky. It was all a bipartisan agreement in the state of California. We voted on that, and now they're repealing it. And when I bring up the word repeal, this is what's going on in the Democratic Party, because the Democratic regime is being repealed and replaced with communism, because Barack Obama refused to promote or endorse the mayor of New York. They're promoting a phone call, but they're not saying he did not go on record to promote Mamdani, which is a known socialist, communist, Marxist, never had a real job in his life. And he's basically saying he's going to be free housing, free transportation, and he's basically trying to punish the billionaires when he comes from a wealthy family. So let's get the facts straight. So Prop 50, here in the state of California, if you vote for it, hey, then you are part of the regime, because I basically put out a campaign slogan, no on 50. So I know it's going to pass because the voter turnout is going to be at a record low, because first of all, there's only one measure on the ballot. Okay. And then you got Gavin Newsom, Barack Obama, AOC, Tom Stroyer is doing commercials himself. The individual that funded the Trump impeachment campaign, which was unsuccessful. So he blew millions upon millions of dollars on an impeachment campaign, and it never even worked. And it was basically just a grand distraction. So I remember Adam Schiff and Hakeem Jeffries just sitting there promoting something and saying the same thing, because I know that they got a big, and I mean a big slice of that pie. Because I guess to be an elected official, you ain't nothing but a bootlegging hustler, because they go into office, basically in a certain tax bracket, and then when they get in office, they, worth 20, 30, 40 million dollars. If you don't believe me, do your due diligence and look up the net worth of our elected officials. So Proposition 50 is not Super Tuesday. I don't even know what to call it. It's just a regular Tuesday, because there's no buzz, there's no communication. Only thing that I see is these ads over and over and over, meaning they're spending millions upon millions of dollars to get this bill passed. But what's going to happen? It's going to be something that they are going to regret. The game is chess, not checkers. The Republicans, they got their lawyers, they know what they're doing, and they're sitting there letting the Democratic Party just crash out. Because if California passes Prop 50, I'm going to say this again, if California passes Prop 50 and write out all the Republican districts, meaning get, approximately 2 to 5 seats in terms of representation in Washington, could you imagine what all the red states are going to do? It's going to be a red wave. The president's going to basically say in the next general election, the president's going to basically say we're going to gerrymander, and we're going to put our states on the ballot as well. And since we are the majority right now, and the majority of these states are red, that we're going to at least map out, one seat per state, meaning they have an opportunity to be plus 20 in Congress when it comes to representation in the House and in the Senate. So California is doing all of this just to get 2 to 3 seats. And the Republicans, if they do follow up, and I'm going to just tell you this, in rules of engagement, every action gets a reaction, and their reaction is going to be the same thing that California did. And they're going to add plus 20. that means the Democratic Party is going to be obsolete, because I'm starting to see independents step up, and independent individuals, they are stepping up and starting to run for office, because this duopoly is ending. And I believe the individuals that finances the Democratic Party is forcing these people to crash out. Because right now we're like, what, 32, 33 days into the shutdown. And I'm looking at the headlines, and the headlines are saying that, a judge has forced Trump to feed or to fund SNAP. That's cap. And cap is another word for lie. And it should be in the dictionary by now. But if it's not, it will be. But that's pure cap. The president put out a tweet, or what he does on Truth Social last week, and I read it. And after I read it, I started seeing these headlines about, these judges are ordering Trump to to fund SNAP and all of that. I'm sitting back, man, there's not a judge on this planet outside the Supreme Court that can order Donald Trump to do anything. And we all know that. So stop it. These are just local judges. But what he did do is he got his lawyers to look up, to basically figure out a way on how they can actually pay. So I got some receipts today. I'm gonna go ahead and read the I don't know what to call it, a tweet or a text, because it was actually on his Truth Social. And let me see here. And this is what he put out on Halloween, on the let me see here. He put this out on the 31st. Okay. And I'm gonna go ahead and read it for you. Because when I sit back and I see these individuals talk about, a judge ordered Trump to do something, that's a lie. Basically, our lawyers, this is Donald Trump on his Truth Social. Basically, our government lawyers do not think that we have the authority to pay SNAP with certain monies that we have available. And now the two courts have issued conflicting opinions on what we can do and cannot do. That does not sound like an order. That sounds like, organization is basically trying to figure out a way where they can actually fund this operation, or fund Americans or the individuals that depends on SNAP, to fund them during the shutdown without just throwing money at it. Just like with COVID and, all these emergency situations, the Democrats, they just throw money out there and everybody gets paid. All the organizations get, monies. All these organizations gets grants. We don't know what they do with the money, but it's just a money grab. So from a legislative perspective, they're just being very careful, because the clock is running out. And the American people know that the Democrats refuse to vote on a clean CR. It's that simple. So when we see Elizabeth Warren, Hakeem Jeffries, Cory Booker, AOC, Gavin Newsom, all these individuals, when we see them go out and say that the Republicans have shut down America, that's cap. That's a lie. That's a lie. Okay, so basically our government lawyers do not think. So the lawyers went to the judges and they asked the courts to basically give them direction on how they can fund America. And even so that the debate is it's more, Republicans on SNAP, and all that's fine and all, but all you Democrats who depend on it, who's scamming, who's trying to blame the president is looking out for you, whether you like it or not, because your elected officials do not care about you. And just because they have a rarity when it comes to leverage, that they're sacrificing your kitchen table for politics. Okay, now let me see here. I have instructed, this is Trump. He tweeted this. He texted this, whatever it is, on Truth Social. I have instructed our lawyers to ask the court to clarify how we can legally fund SNAP as soon as possible. And I'm going to say this again. I have instructed our lawyers to ask the courts to clarify how we can legally fund SNAP as soon as possible. And this was out on the 31st, before the date of the shutdown. Okay, now it's already been delayed enough to the Democrats keeping the government closed through the monthly payment date. And even if we get immediate guidance, it will be, unfortunately, but it will be delayed while some states get the money out. So it's coming. It's going to be delayed. But let's call a spade a spade. The president of the United States, he, like I said, it's more poor whites than it is poor blacks. Let's just keep it 100. It's more poor whites than it is poor Latinos, because the white population, when it comes to the census, is the majority in these United States. Now, blacks or African Americans are approximately 12 to 13% of the population. So there's no way, we can have more. But when you look at how many people are on it versus that's not on it, that's when that's the gray area. That's the gray area. So the president is going to fund SNAP. So the president is going to feed you. And based on, the legal ramifications, they was able to appropriate approximately $5.25 billion in contingency reserves that exist through the Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins said, but as of November, to fund SNAP is approximately $9.2 billion a month, and they only have $5.25 billion in contingency funds to fund. So it's a partial payment. So with that being said, let's have the conversation when it comes to who closed the government and who needs to open the government, because I'm gonna read the continuance of his of the text that Trump had put out. The Democrats should quit. Quit this charade while they hurt people for their own political reasons, and immediately open the government. If you use SNAP benefits, call your Senate Democrats and tell them to reopen the government. And this is why a lot of individuals have issue with Trump. And he tweeted this out on Halloween, October 31st. And in closing, it said, "Here is crying Chuck Schumer's office number." And he actually gives the number. And I'm sitting back saying, wow, this is, you didn't have to say that, Mr. President, but I understand what's going on, because they try to blow your head off, bro. So I get it 100%. So when they sit back and say that Trump is forced by the federal government to pay or to fund SNAP, a judge didn't order Trump to do anything. They asked the judges to give them guidance. But you see how, they twist it up, and legacy media and the news are actually on the same page when it comes to, playing these games. So now, as American people, we really want to know what's truly going on. But one thing that I do understand is that the American people are not happy, with what's going on. Now, Trump's approval rating and all of that is, it depending on what outlet you look at, is good or is bad, but one thing that I did see over the weekend is that American people are tired of Republicans and Democrats. The American people are tired of the fighting. The American people are tired of, the back and forth, and we need to come together. This is why they have opened the door for the nonpartisan independents. This is why you got individuals leaving the Democratic Party by the droves, because of the history of the party. The parties didn't switch. That history can't change. I'm not going to go there today, but it is what it is. But just to watch them, put out and make sure that Proposition 50 is going to pass. They sent senators to California, and black churches allowed these senators to even welcome them into their pulpit. And when you go into a traditional black church's pulpit, you are basically catering to the baby boomers. And I'm going to already and step out and be one of the early whistleblowers, because what they're doing, in my personal opinion, and I have opinion, my personal opinion, they're basically committing elderly abuse, because baby boomers really don't know. Because if you went into the wilderness and you talked about the wilderness, they'll get it and understand it. But if you're trying to get out of the wilderness, they really don't understand that. But the Democratic Party, their whole plan and whole play is to keep them in the wilderness, because the black community, or the African American community outside of the, the LGBTQ car and all that, I'm talking about from a racial perspective, has lost the stronghold of the black vote. Because you got individuals who are outwardly spoken and are Republicans. I'm not one of them. I'm a nonpartisan independent. I'm serving as an assistant to the President of the United States for Black American Affairs. And my job is to figure out a way to make sure that we can actually close the chapter on racism in America with some funding, with some class cash payouts, and with a promise and with the ability to turn our hoods and barrios into communities. And when you talk about a community, meaning your dollars are recycling. You got healthy grocery stores. You can find healthy foods. You got banks. You got credit unions. You got commerce. And with the Olympics coming in 2028, we got the Vermont corridor. That's where we are. That's going to be the vibe of the whole entire operation outside of the Crenshaw district. So it is what it is. So now that we realize our mere existence has to be independent, because if you are on the plantation, you have to do what massa say do. Just like when massa is not feeling well, boss, we sick today, sir. Yeah, that's yes, that. But as nonpartisan independents, we can actually figure these things out. We can and we will. And like I said, I got to go and vote today. And I'm voting no on 5-0 because, like I said, I can't support 5-0. OK, and when I say this, individuals say, man, that sounds like the police. Yeah, no on 5-0, because what they're doing, if they're saying the Republicans are rigging elections, then that means that they're going to rig elections. And they are the party that should not even exist in these days and time. It's what we call a lost cause. OK, they lost the Civil War. The assassin's bullet did a lot when they assassinated Abraham Lincoln, and with Andrew Johnson putting in the black codes and the federal troops leaving the South, they was able to continue to run this scam and to run this scam for a very long time. And right now the jig is up, and we are just past the 60-year anniversary of the Civil Rights Acts and the Voting Rights Acts. But that's what we thought, was putting the black community on, or giving us an opportunity, or some straps for our boots, because they always say, you have to pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. Well, we got boots, but we thought we got straps in the 60s, but that turned out to be, a scam. Because when you look at the baby boomers, you look at, our parents and grandparents, when it's time for us to go grab the torch, it was no torch to pass. And then when I talk to baby boomers, they brag about, oh, my father owned the liquor store. My father owned the market. And I asked them, did he pass it down to you, or do you guys still have that business? And the word is absolutely not, because y'all start selling drugs. Y'all start smoking crack. Y'all start supporting a party that put in a crime bill to actually lock your own children up, which shuffled in this mass incarceration, and it was implemented by the Democrats. So when we look at the baby boomers, have issue with my generation, which is X, and they deemed us as a lost cause. You guys are lost, but we are believers now. And according to my word, we were lost, but now we're found. And the letter X is an unknown factor in algebra. It's an unknown factor in mathematical terms. So we are identifying what we are right now, because the jig is up. And the Bible talks about a 400-year biblical prophecy that just expired in 2019. It just expired. So we are past, the biblical prophecy. And now it's time for us to really understand, because they know what time it is. But if they keep us asleep, if they keep us in the dark, if they continue to lie to us and get us to continue to believe and drink their Kool-Aid, then we're going to continue, and be accountable for the future. Because I don't want to be accountable for the future. Because like I said, I have conversations with baby boomers, and, well, we passed the torch to y'all, man. Y'all passed us pimping. Y'all passed us scamming. Look at your grandbaby scamming right now, on Snap, and then running and stealing and posting that because of, the Democrats are stopping them from, getting their benefits. And the Republican Party is basically, seeking out, the courts to give them a pathway forward so they can actually fund SNAP. But the Democrats are basically saying that it's the Republicans, and all the Democrats got to do, no matter what they say, is to vote on a clean clear resolution, a clean CR, meaning open the government and we can continue to have these talks, because Obamacare, which was the Affordable Care Act, it never been affordable. Okay, back when Obamacare came out, when he became president, man, everybody that got a job got medical, dental. Okay, I still got Kaiser to this day because I continue to pay. But on the job that I was on, from a career perspective, I had Kaiser. Okay, then when I looked at when Obama came in, I first, I'm gonna go get Obamacare. I logged on, it crashed. Okay, and then when I finally got in and saw what I was gonna pay, I was gonna have to pay $800 a month just for Obamacare when I was only paying, $240 a month for my Kaiser with a $25 copay. So the Affordable Care Act was never affordable. And if you did not know, Obamacare was initially Hillary Care, because that's the skim and the scam that the Democrats play with the pharmaceutical companies, with the doctors, with the insurance, and all of this is about kickbacks. So Obamacare, we can't have that conversation with a closed government. Okay, the Democrats put these mandates to expire because they knew that it wasn't a good thing. But now the funders of these campaigns, the funders of these operations, the funders of the No Kings parades or the No Kings rallies, and all these individuals, that these evildoers in high places, they are, are at a point of no return. So the Democrats, as we see it, committing career suicide. Okay, you're going to go ahead, you're going to pass Prop 50. I get that. But you're just basically opening the door for 30 plus states to basically redraw their maps. And if they just get one per state, that's 30 plus. That's a plus 30 on the Republican side. And don't keep the government closed and then allow them to, kill the filibuster rule or the filibuster law, meaning you only need 50 Senate members to pass a bill. So that means they don't need any Democrat support at all. So this is a train wreck. This is a reckoning. It's a regime change, and we got to be out on the lookout to see who these evildoers in high places try to regime change, who they're going to give their funding to, because they know without a shadow of a doubt they went too far. They know a boy is a boy, XXXY, a boy is a boy, a girl is a girl. They implemented all these far left things, and now they're moving into communism, because if the state of New York, if the state of New York, vote this guy in, and they brought the heavyweights out as well. Only one that did not endorse is Obama, but the propaganda that they put out in the media. Oh, Obama had 2 phone calls with Ramdani or whatever his name is, and they went well, but he did not come out and endorse, because if it's too far for Obama, who put in the LGBTQ card, who has to get out there and support whatever they tell him, because he don't want them to, meddle or investigate what happened to his chef who died in 6 feet of water, and I believe he was over 6 feet tall. Okay, they don't want to investigate, why he continues to, to do a Freudian slip and say, Michael and I, okay, when he's talking about his wife Michelle, he's going to have to defend his homosexual, okay, accusations. He already admitted that he snorted cocaine. Okay, so this is why he has to go out and do that, because they could flip the table on him so fast that, you would think that, he was the worst person on this planet. But since he's willing to get out there and, y'all just don't want to vote for her because she's a black woman. Nah. Okay, because you didn't support the black governor, okay, who's running for the state of Virginia. You went out there this weekend and campaigned for the white female, okay, who's on record supporting the individual, the attorney general guy who talks about, that they need to unalive, their opponents. You didn't, you guys are not talking about that. But when we really look at these things and understand, the chickens are coming home to roost. Matter of fact, the chickens are home roosting as we speak. Because like I said, it's going to be so beautiful, for, the ending of the party of slavery. the ending of the party of Jim Crow, the ending of the party, that basically destroyed, Greenwood, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black Wall Street. It's going to be a beautiful thing because payback is a what, and vengeance is the Lord. So what I'm saying is, how can God, do the, destroy? How can God destroy or hurt the Democratic Party when it has this church there? So what I'm saying is, and this is why the word says, you fed people in my name. You prayed for them. You pray. You gave money to people. You fed the poor. You worshipped in my name. But somewhere in that Bible it says, "Depart from me, you workers of iniquity." So that means people who claim to be, and those are the Pharisees in the Bible. Okay, because the Sadducees or the liberal, or the other ones, they have no belief in God. Okay, because the scribes, Sadducees, and the liberals are the same thing. But the Pharisees were hypocritical, because I've read in my Bible multiple times how Jesus went into the Pharisees' house and convinced them and communicated with them and got his feet cleaned and washed and all of these things. But he had no dealings with the scribe. And basically, when it comes to the politics, the scribes are your liberals and the Pharisees are your conservatives. And I like that term because when you look at conservative versus liberalism, there's more conservative human beings, way more than it is liberals. And if the Democratic Party or the elderly or the baby boomers that's being abused by our politicians knew the truth, that a conservative loves God, a conservative respects the word of God, a conservative is a man, a conservative wants to love and marry a woman, a conservative. Now, I'm not saying that there's not homosexual conservatives, but it's not an agenda on that side. On this side, it's an agenda. You have independent individuals like Cory Booker, going on a record when the confirmation of the Secretary of State asking him, was gay sex perverted? Absolutely. Anal sex is perverted, performing a man into a woman. Whether they like it or not, it's still a perversion. Okay. So now that we realize that we cannot deal with either side, and based on that study that I read, and I'm going to take a deep dive in it. So hit the notification, hit the like, hit the subscription, because when we talk about it, we got to have this conversation, because there's a lot of individuals that are tired of both sides. And it seems as if we do not have an option, but we do. Independence is freedom. Okay. Independence is freedom. Being a nonpartisan, meaning in the courtroom, you're not the prosecutor. You're not the defense. You're literally the judge and the jury in that courtroom, meaning we can hold both parties accountable and do what's right. And as independents, we will literally be the strongest coalition when it comes to swing voters, and we can actually swing any election our way, because the swing voter swung the election to Donald Trump because the Democrats went too far, and the Democrats are at a point of no return because they sit there and lie. And when I sit there and talk to my lawyer friends, and they basically says, Glove, these elected officials are lawyers. Now, a lawyer will take, a 25 million to represent somebody that committed a murder, knowing that that individual is guilty. They won't put the murderer on the stand. They may even have or did away with the murder weapon, but they're going to go out and say that that man is innocent without a shadow of doubt, just because of that monies and just because of being a lawyer. That's the rule. Okay. So now they're playing with the American people. They're getting out there lying to our elderly, talking about, first of all, your Social Security and all that's going to be affected with the big ugly bill. Your Social Security has not been affected. And actually, as a lot of baby boomers or Social Security recipients right now that are actually doing their taxes and saying, wow, I'm got a little tax break, because of the big, beautiful bill. Because the big, beautiful bill, just imagine if that big, beautiful bill, the truth, the biggest tax increases or the tax cuts was for the working class. I've seen a situation where 27% was cut for the lower end, and on average a 17% tax cut. That's a 17% pay raise by this particular administration. And when they do figure out what they're going to do with the SNAP, that means this particular administration, meaning Donald J. Trump, the man that you hate, is putting food on your table. And like I said, I could go on and on, but I got to go vote today. And I just wanted to keep it clear that, the Democrats are lying once again, and it is their job to do so. And as a lawyer, that's what they do. That's what they do. So now that we are, thinking of being independent, nonpartisans, this has to be the coalition. This has to be the greatest thing in the 21st century. So when they look back in the history book, what happened to, how did all these individuals, how did crime stop? How did, wealth become what it is? How did these families become strong? How did the black communities turn from hood to communities? Because of the nonpartisan independence, black, white, or indifferent. One thing that we do understand, on earth as it is in heaven, heaven is right here. Don't let nobody else tell you that, because we want to dwell in heavenly places right here. And if our God has many mansions, then the Democrats are holding the keys and stopping our prosperity just for personal gain. And they know how to pick them. They know how to pick them. So I'm going to get up out of here, and we're going to communicate later. So hit that like, hit that notification. This your man, Bushan Glover, signing out. A Better Black America TV on YouTube, A Better Black America radio show on Facebook. It is what it is. Have a great day. This your man, Bushan Glover. Peace out.